Palatka Community Redevelopment Agency meeting for August 12, 2019. We'll now have our invocation and pledge of allegiance. I'm going to ask if everyone please stand. Commissioner Rawls, can you lead us?
Sure. Please bow your heads. Heavenly gracious Father, we just thank you so much for this time that we can spend together doing your work, Lord, in the community, and just ask that you bless our deliberations today and our families and all of our friends and co-workers. In whom we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Jeff Rawls.
Here on time.
Representative Dennis Kemp. Here. Commissioner Tammy McCaskill.
En route.
En route. Commissioner Justin Campbell.
Present.
Commissioner Rufus Warren.
Present.
Mary Lawson Brown. Present. Mayor Terrell Hill.
Good.
So,
Number 4.
yep, the other forum.
Moving on to approval of the minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Move approval.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor for approval by Commissioner Rawls, a second by Commissioner Campbell. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Moving on to public comments. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. No action will be taken on topics of discussion. Is there anyone here for public comment? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Moving on to our regular agenda. Item 1 is a request for direction on state audit findings, collections of debt on building improvement grants at 114 South 13th Street. Becker.
Good evening, everyone. So staff is seeking direction for how to move forward with this item. This was brought to our attention whenever the state auditors were in not too long ago. And there was a grant back in 2011. And per this grant agreement that if the property was sold at any time during, I believe it was a 5-year period, that each year had a specific amount that they had to pay back. Staff has sought to receive repayment of this grant. However, we have not been successful. Therefore, per the finding, the state auditors are asking us to bring it to the attention of our board and ask direction. Would you like for us to move forward with trying to seek this payment or repayment, or do you feel as if we have done what we could do, or we've done our due diligence?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
I think at this point you'd be beating a dead horse because this building, if I'm not mistaken, is the old Elks Club, right? And they're defunct and there's really nothing to go back to.
Go ahead.
Question. Would it go back to the Elks Club proper, not the Putnam County members of the Elks Club, the Elks Club organization itself, not the local but the national, to affirm this debt?
I'm not sure who in the building.
I'll have Mr. Griffith speak to the history of this.
Well, I'm looking at the deed. The deed says the Palatka Elks Lodge, number 1232.
Yeah.
Apparently it wasn't the local club. It was someone out of Jacksonville.
It says the Benevolent Protective Order of the Elks of the United States of America, but they are a subset of that. The Palatka Elks are a subset of that group, right? Sir?
I'm looking at this deed. There's a comment in the deed.
The agreement's by and between Palatka and the local lodge, and I don't know that you can get beyond that, can you?
Well, I mean, if I could speak, I'll provide you a little information. You'll notice the second document in the packet entitled 2010 Building Improvement Grant Agreement.
Mm-hmm.
It was recorded. You see it was recorded in the official records on December 12, 2014. That document, while it isn't technically a lien in the form of a mortgage, it does provide for and put the world on notice of the repayment provision, which is in paragraph 10. And then in paragraph 10A, it talks about how much of the funding you're supposed to have to pay back. And that was of record as of the time that, but it was just of record. You see, it shows it was dated 12/12/14 when it was recorded. And then the deed was 1/7/15. So about 3 weeks after the building improvement grant agreement was recorded, and it could have been after somebody had done title work, quite honestly, because the 3-week span there, who knows? The warranty deed was given to Hale Real Estate. So technically, I would have expected a title search to have revealed this document, and to have at least been an issue, a topic of discussion, because of the obligation that's found in the building improvement grant agreement. As I said, the time of recording of the two instruments may have been an issue. The fact that it was recorded only the document is dated August 2nd, 2011. It's recorded December 12, 2014, 3 years later. So it's possible that because of the recording lapse or time delay, that title work was already done prior to the closing. That would not be unheard of. And maybe nobody did a check down of title. I don't know that. I'm not accusing anybody. I'm saying that's a possibility. But ordinarily, I would have expected that to have been picked up. And if it was picked up normally, I would have expected a title company to say they were going to accept that from coverage of the title insurance coverage. So, having said that, technically, this runs with the land, but we've never tested that. We've never tested that in any of the other grants that we've dealt with. So the person that signed the document was in fact chairman of the board of trustees, and I assume that chairman of the board of trustees was the Palatka Elks Lodge number 1232. They're the ones that signed it. The deed itself came from Palatka Elks Lodge 1232. But if you note, it says formerly the Elks Club Association of Palatka, formerly the Elks Club of Palatka, a dissolved Florida corporation. And it was signed by 1232 by Bill Munchie as ruler of 1232. So technically, ultimately, the responsibility would be on that club who warranted the status of title. I would have expected it to have been picked up on title search, but the 3-year delay in recording may have been the reason why it wasn't.
I guess where I'm stuck is it holds the recipient of the grant accountable, but how much would we incur in attorney's fees trying to defend this or prosecute? Either way, it's less than $5,000, and I think you're doing a disservice to the CRA if you start going down that route. And I'm talking to two guys up here that have the alphabet sit behind their name.
You probably won't incur anything in attorney's fees.
No, I'm not on an hourly rate in terms of that kind of thing. So you'd be charged nothing in terms of my services, but you would have just the actual costs of filing the abstract and whatever happens to come, service of process, that kind of thing that I would be paying to somebody else. Looks like the time frame would have been, I guess, 3 to 4 years after grant received. 40% of the CRA funding would have been the recoup amount, and I guess that the amount of the grant was 10,512. Is that right?
Yeah.
So you're looking to recoup potentially $4,000 round figures.
Yeah, it's in there.
Oh, is it? I missed that.
Yeah, it's in there.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
4204. Okay, cool. So that's what you're looking to try to recoup. If you were going to try to recoup it, quite honestly, I would probably go after both. the grantee of that deed and also the Elks Lodge. The grantee of the deed would have the ability to go after the Elks Lodge because of the warranties, but as you kind of correctly noted, my assumption is that that's a dissolved corporation.
And, if they got title insurance, that might be
If they had title insurance, that would be a big deal. If they had title insurance and somebody forgot to do a check down, then theoretically, that would be a, yeah.
And the recording is 3 weeks, roughly 3-4 weeks. December 12th of 14 is when the contract was recorded, and
Yeah.
January 7th is when the deed was recorded.
Correct. So you've got roughly 18 days, 25 days lapse between the recording of the agreement and the recording of the deed. I think what Ms. Becker was asking was, it's my understanding at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's my understanding that the auditors didn't require you to go after the money, but what they were requiring you is for us to make a statement that it was either feasible to go after the money and spend whatever it would take to try to recover the money, or it wasn't, and that we'd made a deliberate decision to follow either path.
That's
right.
correct. Yes, that's correct. They didn't actually dictate what we had to do. It's just we needed to bring it before the board or the committee and get direction.
Sure.
Was this on last year's audit findings?
It's actually on the 18-month follow-up of the state audit. So we had a state audit and then we had an 18-month follow-up, and this is one of the findings that whenever we closed out that audit, they just wanted us to basically reconcile.
So I have a question. So I think we're going to look at this as a learning opportunity. So what steps?
Yeah.
So what steps can we put in place to do a better job of tracking this so that we don't wind up with another audit finding?
So,
What we did,
yeah.
what we ended up doing was we actually created reporting. We created another line of reporting. So now Ms. Tucker actually, as opposed to these grants being monitored within the districts itself, Ms. Tucker will monitor the grants and they report to finance, and then they will actually close them out and have another line of.
Correct.
So it won't happen.
And so as a caveat as well, whenever we look at redoing some of these incentive programs, and we, and I constantly say this, whenever we look at contracts and everything you write down on that piece of paper, we are bound by that. So the more detail and the more, this percent and that percent and this, we have to do this, we have to do this, you have to follow up. We really have to do those things. And they will read those contracts and say, did you do this? Did you do this? Show me where you did this. Show me proof. And so it's just one of those things whenever we look at revitalizing any of the programs and going forward, which is a trend on this agenda, to be sure that we take these sorts of things into consideration.
And the other thing that should be done is, as soon as the agreement is executed, it should be recorded.
Yep.
Then you don't have a delay. It should be automatic.
And maybe have the language in there that ties this to the title, so in some way you have lien rights, but it's spelled out in there, and it survives transfer.
It actually is. It states in 10B, if the recipient does not repay the grant funds, the CRA expressly reserves the right to file a lien. So in terms of an actual lien, and a lien is a term that covers an awful lot of different vehicles, but I would have expected this to have been picked up and by itself to have caused a hiccup if title insurance was ordered, and I don't know whether it was. We all know that some of these transactions go down without title insurance, and if title insurance wasn't ordered, then it wouldn't be picked up. But then, in that event, you're looking at a buyer beware situation. If due diligence wasn't, well, at least most of us would consider title search to be due diligence in buying real estate. If due diligence wasn't practiced, then you kind of...
We got two choices. The property's for sale right now. You could lien the property and get your money eventually. But it just doesn't seem like it's worth pursuing it.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to address something. I do know the history on this specific project and this reporting. The city manager's office back in the date that you said, Mr. Holmes, actually was doing a review of these projects to see which ones had been sold, which ones hadn't been recorded. They did pick up on this one as the deal was going through and got it recorded in time, but for some reason it still didn't resolve the issue. Most of these that do transfer hands, the title work covers it. We usually get a call. Title company asks us to basically certify the amount that they owe. We send them an email. They cut us a check. We sign a release. Goes through. We have had one where they didn't. It was just a cash sale. We caught wind of it. We were able to get them to pay, but we really were only able to do that by leaning on them. There is some logic separate from this agenda item that the board may want to take up when we do get a planning firm on board to revise the plan in some of our programs. The logic is that we are granting funds for buildings and for property for the removal of blight. So there may not be a requirement for a payback provision, or there may be a requirement that may be a little less stringent. A 5-year holding period and tracking 41 projects for 5 years is quite difficult with a staff of 1. So.
So yes, we just need direction from the board how to move forward.
What's the pleasure of the agency?
I just think just
I
put a
make-
lien on it. What it cost? What would it cost to just put a lien on it? And just let it.
$15.
Just go. Just let the process go through.
So we're back here.
Have you already tried that?
Good luck.
What was the response when you dealt with the title company?
I'd have to go back and look at the email correspondences, because we were dealing with them and we were dealing with a representative from the Elk side of
So
Jacksonville.
it's your belief that a title policy was issued?
I mean, they facilitated the sale.
Well, I know, but acting as closing agent and issuing title company may not, issuing title policy may not be the same.
I'd have to ask.
Okay.
This is one of the things where you got
So,
a local owner
any,
that could be impacted.
is there a motion? How about we give direction to see if there's a title policy, to verify that there's a title policy? If there's a title policy issue, we try to work the channels with the title company, and if there isn't, then we move to the lien.
I'll contact the title company if that's the pleasure of the board. And
I'll confirm if it was, though. That's my recollection. I'll let you know in the morning.
they're on the deed.
They're on the
correct?
deed.
Oh, they are on it?
Yeah.
It is them, okay.
So we'll have this back in 3 months?
We should, but if you give the direction and the alternative to file the lien, then that can also be a part of what you got to play.
Well, if I'm going to do it, am I authorized, if I find that there was a title insurance policy issued, am I at liberty to make a demand on the title policy for the money?
Yes, sir.
So,
Do you want a motion?
yes, sir.
I'd make a motion that we pursue repayment through the first with the title company, giving council the opportunity to make the demand on the title policy if it's in fact available. And if not, then this returns back to us for consideration.
And then the lien.
Well, if not, then we have the ability to file the lien.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
File the lien, and then it returns back to us for consideration of how we move forward prior to January.
Yeah, that way that lien's in place. Okay, I got you.
So the motion is for council to be able to demand payment from the title company if verified, and also file a lien if there is no other course of action, and then it will return back to the agency prior to January for instructions on how to proceed forward at that point.
Second.
The motion on the floor in a second. Is there any further discussion? Questions called. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously.
So is that our official response to the state, or is it still yet to be written after?
That-
Whenever it closes out, we can do an
Yeah.
official response.
Some of that is to let council do its thing.
Alright. Approved.
Council rules.
CRA Incentive Program revisions, Mr. Griffith.
I don't know if everybody's had a chance to read the item summary, but in looking over the budget, as well as being aware that we have issued a request for proposals for planning services to evaluate the current CRA plan lead a pretty extensive public input process and review the existing plan and wishes of the public and the board for a revised CRA plan, in addition to looking at new TIF districts. We thought it may be prudent for the board to consider suspending some of the incentive programs, assuming that you may have entirely different programs and a plan document halfway through the next fiscal year. It's just a suggestion. Staff does believe that the recruitment grant and the commercial rehab grant are good programs. Those are typically dollar-for-dollar incentive programs. They have ultimately resulted in some fairly good projects where properties that were vacant and blighted are now occupied and significantly improved. I do have some data. We did start a pretty extensive review of all the incentives that we've granted since 2009, the amount of money the CRA has put in, the amount of in-kind contribution the CRA and city has put in, and the amount of dollars that private entities have put in. We have all that inputted, but we're still looking into the taxable value year over year. It's a pretty large spreadsheet. We're close. We hope to have it pretty much done when the consultant comes on to facilitate discussions.
Yes, ma'am.
Was this put together, was this proposal put together at the request of the board?
Was
This document, was this put together at the request of the board? The proposal he's bringing to us?
Not in my mind.
the staff recommended?
So was this vetted with the Northern Historic District, the Southern and the Central? Did it go before any of the taxed areas where the funds are collected to let them know that you were considering suspending these programs?
We had their input when they suggested they wanted additional funding put in the budget for incentives. They wanted to continue the status quo. And we're not saying that we don't want to do that. We're just saying that we may want to suspend the programs until we can get into the planning process where that consultant is going to actually meet with those entities and take their input, their wishes, their desires, and a review of Florida statute and a review with the board and develop the new and revised planning document.
So how long would all these incentive programs be put on hold?
Until such planning document is completed.
And the timeline for that?
I would anticipate that we would have a draft at least halfway through the fiscal year.
The upcoming fiscal year?
Yes, ma'am.
So you're already going to have the monies budgeted and allocated per category when you go into the fiscal year. What happens to that money that would have supported these programs? It just sits there?
That is up to the board and the city commission. The two scenarios is, or three scenarios. One is don't suspend any programs and we continue operating as we have. The second being, you suspend the programs, we get through the planning process, and we either continue as we have with slight modifications, or there are totally different programs and incentives. But we don't know until we go through that public workshop process.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So this is focusing on mostly residential, it looks like. You've got you say commercial rehabilitation program here, but it looks like you're wanting to still do commercial rehabilitation. Is that correct?
Commissioner Rawls, yeah, one of the things that we have seen in our limited review of the programs is that the commercial rehab and the recruitment grant program usually result in fewer projects, but they result in much greater projects.
But it says here, suspend commercial rehabilitation program.
That may have been a typo. I apologize. Let me see what I wrote here.
It says reinstate.
Reinstate. Yeah. That was a pilot project, sir. It was actually written in there. They would only do 2 projects. Yeah.
So is there any commercial rehabilitation programs in consideration right now?
We don't have any applications. We do have one potential applicant who's reached out, and we advised them that the program is not active because it was a pilot project. I think we have their contact information in case it does go back active.
That was the tenant who has the property adjacent to Double Realty. The owner that has the other,
adjacent.
That's the other part of that building.
Right, yeah, okay.
The other part of the building.
Okay.
My general comment is that the reason you don't have a lot of applications is because folks, to a large extent, aren't aware of this program. There are a few that you hear from regularly, but there's a large portion of folks downtown, businesses, and some of the folks in different districts that aren't fully aware of this program. They know they pay the taxes for the special taxing district, but they're not aware of all the benefits of the program to them.
If you're not paying any taxes for special taxing district, the money is allocated differently.
So don't you collect extra taxes?
No.
No.
No, it's just
Same.
allocated.
It's
You
allocated different. You don't pay one penny.
Yeah.
don't pay one penny different. Okay.
Right.
All right. I'm telling you, I'm learning.
No, you're okay.
I'm gonna catch up.
They just get
It's
increment. They just get,
We're still learning.
But so one of the things, and I think it's kind of, it's alluded to in here, there are 85, you alluded to 85 projects since 2009 of HIP program, the HIP program, which roughly 150,000. What have you seen as the gain in taxable value? Ballpark, or based on what you have so far?
Well, I can tell you, just looking at a few of the projects, with the average being 10,231 and then putting less than 1,000 in, it doesn't ever trigger a new evaluation of the property.
But I think it's unfair, too, to say since 2009. That's kind of a loaded question. That was a whole economy ago.
Yeah, but I guess the thing is, I don't know how loaded it is, because I valued it low then. I saw my commercial property actually increase in value in 2009.
That's what I'm talking about.
So, when the whole market crashed. But I think that, but I think the one thing that I saw in the illustration was that you could see dollar for dollar commercial rehab because it actually triggered something. But when you looked at the valuation on taxable value on the residential properties, nothing really changed because the property was still in its same state. And what was put in, the $850,000 put in for the commercial rehab, your value came from the aesthetics of the neighborhood, but from the HIP programs, from the aesthetics of the neighborhood, but not necessarily from a significant increase in taxable value, if any increase in taxable value. Because again, there wasn't a reassessment, and then you're still capped on the residential properties. It's homesteaded as to what your value is going to be. So you're never going to see a dollar for dollar increase unless there's some transfer of the property. So with all that being said, any other comments from the agency?
I think I understand where Steve's coming from as far as, having communication with the north and south side TIFs and the stakeholders, and I'm not sure if I really heard an answer to the question, which was, have they been notified and are they aware? Did they request this? Are they aware of this?
They did
If I
not.
pulled 9 out of 10, what would the answer be?
They did not request this. This is purely a staff recommendation based upon our analysis of what we see. This is not a critique of the home improvement program. The home improvement program has been highly successful. I think it achieved great things as far as the appearance of the neighborhood. I would tell you that I know 9 out of 10 of the residents would say they want the home improvement program. But if I was in their shoes, I'd want it too, because I could get a free $10,000 to paint my house, put a roof on it. I'm just saying, from staff's perspective, we're asking the board if this is something that you think we need to continue for the next 6 months until such time we have revised our CRA plan and we may have different priorities. I would encourage you to drive these neighborhoods and kind of get a feel for what you think the priorities are. It's very telling.
So with the projects we have kind of in the queue right now, will those projects run through the next 6 months, or will they be complete prior to?
Right now, there are 2 scheduled projects, one in the central and one in the south, that are scheduled to be done before the end of this fiscal year. And then it just depends on the allocation of monies and your direction as to what occurs next year.
We're going through next March, just for clarity, correct?
Right, so they're 6 months, October to March.
Right, okay. All right, it's 6 months.
All right. Any more discussion, or I entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion that we suspend it for the next 6 months, as long as it can be pulled back up in 6 months for reconsideration.
There's a motion on the floor and second. Any further discussion?
Question.
Questions called. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
1 no. Motion carries. Carried.
reason my no was based on lack of communication, not because I don't think it's okay.
Moving on to number 3, DPI marketing plan, CRA budget proposal fiscal year 2019-20. Ms. Correa.
Just for clarification, it's not DPI, it's a marketing program, or RHPs, it's for the individuals.
Is RHP instead of DPI?
It's,
Well, let's call it downtown.
okay, let's start again. Robbie Correa, 118 Dodge. It's technically intended for downtown Palatka. It's not either or any organization, just to clarify
Call
that.
it downtown.
So, come on up.
I did.
Consistent with what we've done in the past, when we had a proposal from one of our special interest groups or multiple groups, we'd like to get as much information in front of the board for you to consider how the money is going to be allocated. Because if you confirm this budget allocation for marketing, staff is then going to be charged with making sure that they follow procurement policy and submit requisitions, sometimes quotes, and we would issue a purchase order if it's in line with the plan that's approved by you, and if it's consistent with our procurement policy. So Ms. Correa met with myself and Ms. Tucker. We asked her some questions and asked her to put some additional clarification on what was originally submitted to you at the budget workshop, and I believe you have that in front of you, and she's here tonight if you have any other questions of her.
And on the version you have, let me just see.
Yeah,
Okay, so Robbie did not do her math on the total. She didn't update it. It really should say 13,045, not 22. So,
Total dollar.
Yeah.
other than my math skills, do you have any other questions?
She sent 13,000
13,000.
annually.
Okay, 13 instead of 22.
Yeah.
I got a question. So is this starting October?
Yes.
Okay, this is an
Yes.
annual proposed
Yes.
budget. Who's responsible for the production of the events? You got downtown table events.
That has been graphics too, and I think to Mr. Rick's point, we didn't go first to Mandy and, well, to Ms. Tucker and Mr. Griffith to get POs, purchase orders, and as an old state employee, I should know better, but we will do that from now on. I guess from my training, first of all, at that time, Mr. Deputy was on the CRA board, and to this point, to the best of my knowledge, has never been paid for the ones for the previous year. My viewpoint, though, not any favoritism towards graphics too, it is the only downtown in the CRA district printing business. That was my mindset in using their services. And everything is under 5,000. I'm looking at it to make sure right before I look at it. Although if you turn it out, it's slightly more. So anyway, that's it.
I have a question.
Sure.
I think we're planning this up right. You say it's not 22, but what I'm saying is 22.
It's only 3,000 or 10,000.
Is the radio 1,000 or 10,000?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
the radio.
Number 3.
Still,
That shows 10,000.
yeah.
Is,
Number 3.
Number 3 is 10.
can you confirm,
Well, that's 16,000.
can you confirm your total for each one?
Actually, you know what? And I'm looking at this. Okay, so 6,045 is definitely number 1 is correct.
Okay,
Visit Florida membership, that's going to be 1,500 plus the collateral, so the 2,000 is correct.
okay.
I think there's a mix-up with number 3 and 4. So 3 web, well, no, okay, that may be correct. I'm sorry. Web, radio, and TV. I've looked at this so many times in so many different ways. I am so sorry. Web, radio, and TV advertising, annual budget 10. And I think the big cost in that is the TV advertising. And we were looking at, or considering, and we don't know this yet, WJCT or stations of that nature. But that's where the bigger cost factor is, in the TV advertising.
So would that go away or would it stay?
It can be negotiated. It won't go away. If this group feels it's less, I don't just give things away.
No, but what
No,
that
the
does with your
possibility
number
way, I'm
though.
teasing.
But it does not change the number much because you're only off $500. You reduce number 2 visit.
She's not. She's
She
not.
did.
She's not.
No, she just broke it down.
I just broke it down. I didn't
Five.
reduce it. I did not reduce
She
it.
just broke it down.
Yeah, I did not reduce
Okay,
anything. So
okay.
far, nothing's reduced.
So she gonna stay with
We're
me?
having this discussion now. I didn't
Okay.
reduce anything.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah,
we'll stay
sorry.
with it. So we're staying with 22.
So 22 is.
No, we're staying with 13.
13 isn't enough.
13
No,
where?
My math was correct to begin
Your,
with. Why
your
did you
sheet
change
is
that?
your sheet is
Because
22.
you revised
Okay. Okay.
Is yours August the 4th?
No, I never did. No.
I mean, August the 4th.
On the
date.
bottom. Now, your sheet.
I'm
what-
sorry.
What you have on this sheet is $22,045.
Yeah,
Yes.
And is
This
it
what I
stamped
had to
August
begin
4th on the
with.
bottom of your sheet?
Yes,
Okay, so it is correct.
so it is 22.
yes.
Made you think.
Told you my math was up.
First day of school.
Yeah. All right, so I've got a question from left field.
Sure.
The Visit Florida membership, is that not something that's paid for already through the tourist development?
I don't know.
And if so, would we not be able to piggyback on that?
We can look at it. We have not talked to them, and we've not,
Well, that goes right to what TDC money is supposed to be spent for.
at this point, we haven't had a lot of chamber and TDC involvement with a lot of things downtown. Some events, I'm not saying that they have given grants for events, but for something like marketing, promotional opportunities, we have not had much interface. I don't know, maybe we should be looking at that, and that's fine.
Well, I spent the last 8 hours today looking
RHP
at
will buy,
TDC.
we can get, without this funding, RHP can purchase a Visit Florida membership. It's not that expensive.
Well, the TDC has 65%.
It was just more of a
this.
downtown thing. I didn't want it to be an RHP, DPI. I didn't think we as a group downtown, we wanted it to be more,
I think this is already addressed in, I'm not opposed to this, but it's, would almost be like spending the same thing twice. With TDC, 65% of that money can be spent on things like this. I think it'd be,
and that's fine. We can look at that if that's something that you want us to pull from this proposal.
and I just wondered, is there any way the CRA can go back and ask TDC for that? You know, if we push this through, can we get reimbursed by TDC for putting this out there?
I think it might be easier just to take it off of this proposal and let us try to negotiate with them and/or Visit.
Well, you also got the
Or we'll
$10,000
purchase,
budget.
we'll purchase a membership as an RHP will purchase a membership.
Well, you
As a
have to, I mean,
nonprofit.
there's no membership for TDC. It's
No, I'm talking about the Visit Florida membership.
Okay.
I'm saying if we pull this line item from this plan for that membership, then we can either talk to the TDC about possibly helping us fund it, or if they won't, we'll use RHP funding. How's that? That will make it easier.
Right. Rick Scott also had a plan like that too for Visit Florida. He had funding out there and available for it. I think that was continued. So you probably.
Visit Florida is out there and has funding. That's why we want a membership, because it also gives you the ability to put brochures and other things in the welcome centers throughout the state as people enter and exit the state to get more about Palatka out there. That was our intent.
And I think I'm saying get funding from the state of Florida. I think they have a pool of money that
A grant program?
they provide to cities that
Yes.
that do promotion.
Okay, thank you.
That's what I was supposed to say, is Gadsden County, I'm sure probably the same for Putnam County, but our TDC was a member of Visit Florida, and also our Economic Development Council, which basically what you're doing years of, and that way you can get marketing grants and grants through Visit Florida. So that $2,000 is well spent for the money you can get back from Visit Florida, unless they cut it drastically.
Yeah, I agree.
But also, you have another 14,000 on here that looks like it would tie directly to TDC. Talking about the web radio, TV advertising, and development of promotional commercials and.
And I know that the Chamber TDC have done some commercials, and they're great. They're about the county, which is also great. I think we were trying to focus in on downtown Palatka specific and have some neat videos. We were going to have a competition with the last high school.
No, I get that. What I'm saying is you guys could do those Palatka specific brochures, because in all honesty, most of the TDC money is going to come from the greater Palatka area anyways. You know, your hotels and motels are mostly centered around here, so I would think that this money would be requested, and probably more than that, from TDC. We got $450,000 we're raising, and 65% of that can go to that.
One of the things historically that hasn't happened is you haven't had, from the TDC side, some of the programming in downtown historically has not made a request because you've had other entities that actually fundraise and do their own thing as it relates to advertising. It's pretty much the only thing you get from in the CBD is River City Players and the Arts Council for the most part. And then you may have one program in downtown that actually will come in. It's a 2-day, let's say we chart if it's a chalk explosion or something to that effect, or some festival like Bartram. But for and the advertising for those events is a part of what the funding allocation is. But overall, there hasn't, DPI or any other organization hasn't come back, or even the CRA, for instance, hasn't come back and said, hey, we're doing A, B, and C to draw heads and beds,
right,
which is really kind of the standard as to what you're going to do from the TDC side. And there hasn't been anything event-specific driven towards doing that, and that's why you haven't, if that request hasn't been there, that's why you've never got to this point.
Right, and that request hasn't gone in. I know I can speak to the RHP, and even the majority, with the exception of Azalea Festival for DPI, most of them are just day or evening events. They're not bringing the events to heads. So we haven't made that. And I'm also one of those folks that believes in creating self-sustaining events, because the next year you can't count on getting that funding. So it's, in my opinion, better to start small, self-sustaining. So for Winesdorf's, the Craft Beer Festival, we're self-sustaining, and we come out with a profit and seed money for the following year. That has worked out better. That's been my experience, and that's why we haven't done that. And I know for the bigger weekend-long events, then it makes sense to go to the TDC and whoever else you can find to help out financially.
Question.
Sure.
So, and it's for the board, a mix of the board and for you as well. Per the budget workshop, the CRA board asked for inclusion of the programming monies to be in downtown or to be included in the market plan. So that's something that I do not see in the market plan.
Because we weren't really told about it.
Do you want to address that, Mayor?
So at the budget workshop, we were instructed to include programming into the market plan or into a line item in the downtown to see more programming downtown. And this looks like a lot of like advertisements and that sort of thing. So I wasn't sure if we were going to ask to revise the marketing plan to include programming monies, or if we were going to partner with like our new recreation community department to do that, and if so, do we need to have a separate line item? Are we going to reallocate funds? Just kind of wanted direction on that.
So we've got with the creation of the Recreation and Cultural Resources Department with Winston and Cultural Resources, part of what we had allocated in the budget was actually to start having funds available for seeding programs, additional programs into the CRA districts. And so this was kind of along the same lines. We can actually, for the purposes of what we're doing, kind of tie the two together, and so that and create the opportunity to work better.
So that
probably more so as it relates to 2, 3, and 4 from that standpoint. Trying to do some mix of those.
There just wasn't a lot of detail in here, so I wanted to be sure that we included that in the plan so that we were all clear. The second question is there's a competition. I'm not exactly sure, and I know we're going to research it as far as giving CRA monies as award winning. So I don't know if that's what your goal was.
And that it wasn't going to be any like significant awards. The award was mainly the participation. It might be something small, but it wasn't going to be financial awards.
Okay, no monetary.
No
okay.
monetary awards.
Okay, so that was just a clarification. And then what types of details? So this report is, a great summary of what everybody is wanting to do. However, finance will require a quote and a draft of whatever you're going to print before the invoice actually comes in. So that's where I wanted the question of, does the draft need to go before staff to make sure that it looks or it gets the check mark to move forward with printing? Is that something that the board would like to see before it goes to print? I don't know how many tabletop printer, like there's no number on any of that stuff, but I would hate for us to be sitting in a restaurant somewhere and one of the board members say, well, I would have never wanted that on there for whatever reason. I just don't know if there's branding codes or anything with the CRA. That's not my specialty, but because we will be receiving a draft for the quote, I wasn't sure if that's something that needed to be approved.
I'll be the first to say, I don't want to review it.
Well, I don't either,
And
because
I
I'm
mean,
not a design, but.
The table tents from quarter to quarter, the basic tent looks the same. Obviously, the events are different, and the events are only for events that occur within the central business TIF. We do not include anything north, south, or beyond those boundaries. We're pretty aware of that piece.
And they're largely not for profit.
Correct, and also non-for-profit. So we don't include like sales at a business or anything like that. This is about downtown Palatka, not individual business market. That business's responsibility.
So as long as you're okay with us receiving the drafts and the quote, then giving direction to move forward, then that's okay.
So can we look at incorporating some form of 2, 3, and 4 together with the 25 from the program design that we had with cultural resources?
Do you want us all to sit down again and come back?
I guess when I look at the numbers are round and pretty, and it's kind of like having a pot to do stuff with. When we're saying determine niche groups, are you trying to determine what the niche market is? Is that what we're saying? You're looking at and so developing the sister city relationship really doesn't cost much money unless you're actually traveling to the city.
And I've already done that because I go up there anyway. So for the first example with Putnam, I already talked to the economic development over there.
So like looking at number 3, advertising beyond Palatka. So in essence, the only thing there is advertising beyond Palatka. And then the only thing I would want is if we're saying we're going to advertise beyond Palatka 10,000, what are we looking at? What modes of advertising are we looking at doing? Is it going to be magazine advertisements? Is there going to be just some implementation of some type of plan or strategy as to what the mix is going to be, whether it's TV, we're doing dollar ads on TV or billboard or whatever it may be, and how far are we reaching out and in order? Because 10 won't, at the end of the day in real marketing, 10 doesn't stretch.
Doesn't go very far. Yeah, and I think we would have to refine this, and we'd also be able to come up with some data to see whatever we do, whether that really has any success or not. That we have any response whatsoever. Which is hard to measure.
You know, from an ROI perspective?
Again, we haven't, I think, to be honest, we haven't gotten to that point of being that specific, so we do need to do that.
No, I'm saying your comment was that being able to gauge its effectiveness basically from a return on investment perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I personally don't have any problem with this at all. I think it's a great idea. I just think that at some point the CRA should try to get themselves in a position to go to the TDC and recoup some of the money for that, because in the end, this is going to benefit not just the city of Palatka, but all of Putnam County. If somebody drives in here, chances are they might stay at the motel in the St. John's area. They may cut at Crystal Cove or somewhere else, but just my 10 cents worth.
Yeah, but I think you still, even when we start looking at what we're doing for the TDC side, it's being able to do some of the creative things we talked about before, is being able to promote, like, I've seen some of the other cities, like there was Hamilton County, they advertised a packet in there as a part of what they did, which had overnight stays, all the different activities as a part of the package of what they did, so that it was easy to say, hey, this is going to create heads and beds or whatever, to kind of make it tie in a little bit more to what the standard has been created on those things. And so I think, all this stuff can be done, and I definitely think that we're moving in the right direction. And I think that those creative pieces are what makes it easier to meet the categories necessary to do it. Because one of the things that historically has been the challenge is having the one-day events, which don't necessarily meet criteria in the same way, unless you can create that extra piece of draw to kind of incentivize a person to stay overnight and then start tracking numbers to see exactly where the bed tax dollars have increased, where you are from a policy standpoint.
And I think we will be, like, in regards to the sister city, specifically with Putnam, they are a trail hub also. So we're looking at the trail town concept and developing those type of packages for cyclists for a weekend, say, and having other things for them to do beyond just cycling, things to see, have a whole, and that's what we are working on that committee, which is part of our HP.
Well, sister cities is a broader concept because we got sister cities in Russia, but sister cities bring other events in other countries over from time to time, and I would love to see that done. I think Dunedin has a Scottish time, and they do a big deal with it, and they have people come over and partner, and that sure would put heads in beds if we could start to look at it. And there is a connection with sister cities and the Florida League of Cities if you need more connection.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a Palatka, Michigan. Other than that, there's a lot of Putnam counties and there's a town, obviously Putnam, Connecticut. So there's more draw possibilities with Putnam than Palatka itself. I mean, I know there's one in Russia as well.
Yeah.
So I guess from the agency side, I haven't heard much about the way of kind of any dissent on this. It sounds like the agency is okay with what's proposed. It's just a matter of
Refining it a
getting with
bit.
staff and refining
More
it
detail.
from a budgeting standpoint. So
I'm fine with, you said 13, right?
Do the math. Not like me.
All right. Yeah,
motion.
Motion. Fine, make a motion.
Subject to getting with staff.
Make a motion to have the what's your group? Is it a
Downtown
group?
market.
Downtown marketing.
Downtown marketing to work out the details with our finance. And I don't know if you need to work with our attorney, because they oversee the CRA stuff too. Finance to work out the details and move forward with the program.
What's on the floor?
Second.
There's a second. Any further discussion?
Question?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you again, Ms. Correa. Other business update, RFP 2019-16, CRA Consulting Services.
The deadline will be September 3rd. Staff will then sift through the applications, do a staff review. CRA does reserve the right within the RFP to interview the respondents or to have presentations before making their final recommendation to the City Commission. So just wanted to put you on notice that there may be a special called meeting depending on the caliber of the proposals.
So, any comments, concerns?
We have to send it out. Or,
It's already out.
no, I mean, it had to be sent out to pick a firm.
Yes, we've advertised the RFP. It's up on our website. Ms. Tucker got it to the Florida Redevelopment website. We have at least 12 registered parties right now.
Okay, I was questioning that because we've had somebody who volunteered their time for a number of years to help us get information.
Yeah, that person was here, and they indicated that they would also be, because they ended up submitting. They were here the last meeting. Tax increment funding financial report. Sorry, proposed budget update. Discussion business made by the CRA budget workshop.
Yes. Okay, so before you have a summary of the budget revisions as directed from the workshop. We will be, per the earlier discussion, pending on some of the grant programs that we have until March so that we can see how the new proposal comes back to us. Let's see. Two main changes that really came about while we were discussing back from the workshop was to reallocate some of the accumulated funds that was in South. They will be doing some road reconstruction, and so we were hoping that we could potentially piggyback off of some of those contracts as they come through. We're not sure if that will be the case, but I wanted to put a buffer in the budget right now for that. do you have any comments on that you want to type in? Yeah, it's just a potential.
Question on the River Street project. Is there going to be a total paving on that road or just?
It really depends on the price, Mayor. We did try and get them to keep their trench to the bike lane so we could keep this the cut line right out of the wheel path, but unfortunately they started to lose the curb, and we found another 2 water lines that nobody had any idea were in the ground right underneath the curb. So,
At least there's 2 and not 3.
no, the third one was on the other side of the road. We knew about that one. But by the way, I don't know if anybody's seen the picture on Facebook, but it's a great picture of all the rusted pipes just stacked up on River Street.
Wow.
It tells a pretty compelling story. The intent would be to resurface the entire road as the sewer system is in good condition there. It is a county-maintained road, so maybe the city can ask for a little help.
Throw that out there.
I'm laughing out loud.
That was very
by the way.
sly,
For the
right?
record, that is me laughing out loud. Yeah, no money yet.
So if you don't have any comments on those revisions, we will be taking it to the commission for first reading on the 13th or 12th, whatever. 12th, okay, 12th.
I have one comment.
Sure.
The number 2 and number 1,
Okay.
where we're using some of the marketing, would that be tied into what they're?
That is that line.
Okay.
So I had cut it down to 5,000, and
Right.
so we're
It's back
increasing
up.
it back up.
Right,
Yes, sir.
so then we also have the wayfinding, which is also kind of part of marketing, isn't it?
Well, that's their signage, so that's
Okay,
a different line.
okay, no problem.
This is what we discussed the last time.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Okay. So if you're okay with that, I can move on to the next agenda item.
Yes, ma'am.
You okay?
Sure, go ahead.
I know you call those, but I'm trying to help you out today. I feel very helpful today on this Monday. Listen, I had an emotional day. It's my kid's first day of school, so forgive me, I'm a little frazzled. No, so we're performing very well. For this fiscal year end spending is coming to a close. I sent out our spending calendar once again this fiscal year, and the last day to enter requisitions is September 6th. So this report is as of July, but I've been monitoring daily, and everything looks to be performing where it should be. So hopefully we'll have a clean year-end close, and we'll reopen on October 1. So I don't think we meet back until that point. So
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Becker. You want to call number 7?
I will be live.
TIF combined project report, Ms. Tucker.
Okay, so right now we have 2 home improvement projects that are being scheduled. One is actually in the works, it's a painting on Laurel Street, and then we have a roof on River Street. We are in the process of just about to close out the residential rehabilitation at 611 Emmett. I've had some discussions with Mr. Bergen. He's starting to put his paperwork together. Hopefully we'll be submitting that for his reimbursement before the end of the fiscal year. The commercial rehab at Laurel Street, 625, thank you, 625 Laurel, just closed out. I've been inside the building. They did a beautiful job inside and out. Yes, sir.
On those projects, as they close out, would it be too much for us to at least get some pictures to see what the money goes to? So I think that'll give a better insight as well.
Yes, in fact, with the Project Putnam update, I actually included a before and after of the exterior. But I will go by and get some interior pictures for y'all as well, so you can see that.
I have a
Thank you. And the other, the clock tower, we're scheduling for it to be put back in place. Hopefully we'll have it back by the end of this month, I'm hoping. We'll see how that goes.
11 degrees orientation.
And of course, the potable water project in the south is wrapping up. They're starting to do some site restoration. That's about it.
Any questions? All right, thank you. SBDC.
Long time no see. Cheryl Lynch, 900 St. John's Avenue. You should have your City of Palatka activity report in front of you, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Are we getting a firehouse subs? Are we getting an Aldi? You're sitting here to answer whatever questions you have.
I don't know.
One is yes.
One is yes. Which one?
One's already cooked. Permits.
I think I see firehouse going up.
Well, it's a vanilla box, but I
Yeah.
think that's what it's going to be.
Look like one.
It is.
Aldi had turned in paperwork as well.
Fire department just got it. So, we,
Oh, and there's
This report
also
looks-
another success story in there.
this
So.
report looks familiar. So, some of us just saw this a couple days ago.
Yes.
Any questions on the report, Ms. Kim, for Mr. Rowe?
No.
All right. Again, thank you very much, and we're moving forward. We just approved your contract for another year from the city side,
Yeah,
so
I'm supposed to get signed copies.
it was, there should have more. There's,
Should be somewhere.
good luck.
Mr. is out this week, so.
You got the sign, you got that.
We could try to look
Yeah,
for
all
you.
right, rest in peace, for sure.
Is he?
But she
Yeah,
said,
maybe on her desk.
She won't be back, she won't be back this week.
I'll come back in the morning.
Jonathan's gonna look at it.
She's not gonna be here, she's going
All right. North Tiff not here, South Tiff not here. I'm sorry, RHP. Got anything else?
Hi, Robbie Gray, 118 Lodge. Just upcoming events, on September 28th, we'll be having the Bartram Frolic Wine Stroll. October 19th, the Palatka Craft Beer Festival in partnership with the Palatka Young Professionals. And then the Mural Committee, Revitalize Historic Palatka, and the Arts Council are going to do a Murals and Music concert series. On November 9th, we'll be doing a concert in front of the Veterans Memorial Mural, actually across the street of Maris Bank. Yes, I will submit a special events application shortly. And then on the 18th of January, we'll be doing a Veteran Society Syncopators. And then in March, we'll be meeting in Oakley. And it's really a fundraiser for the Mural Committee so we can finish the Veterans Memorial. Yes.
You have those dates written down somewhere that
If you can read my handwriting, yes. And that's pretty much it, just a quick update. Everything else is fine.
Okay, thank you. Anything from DPI?
Can't speak for DPI, I'm not on that board.
Can I ask Ms. Kim? Mr. Campbell, you got anything? No, sir. Ms. Kim? Commissioner Brown?
If y'all would like and give it to us, we can get our festivals put in the Palatka magazine so that people will know our big festivals. All the other cities put them in, and I think it would be good to help spread it because it goes to 420 cities.
It's free. Mr. Garner? Mr. McCaskill?
No.
Mr. Boer?
Just a simple thing, piggybacking off of Vice Mayor Brown, but I think when we go to our legal cities monthly, or well, it's almost monthly, the dinners, whenever we do report outs, if we can get some of those, any events that we're having already, like printed or published, a lot of times we just get up and we'll just make a spiel, like, okay, we're having a mayor's reception or whatever it may be, events here in Palatka, these dates. A lot of times people are not taking all that stuff down, so we can just have some.
We can give you our table tents
Yeah.
in a flyer form. And just
Okay,
send those to you.
any flyers, things of that nature.
And that'll have everything on it.
Yeah, we can
Happen
kind of publish.
downtown.
We'll publish for Palatka in that manner. So that's all I have.
Mr. Robinson?
I got nothing.
We're adjourned.